We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
Now this is the part I love about my job, where I really get off on y'all. Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. People keep talking about the fight, so I got more to add to the equation. A sparring partner, somebody who's been and shared the ring, not in a pro fight, but in sparring with Terence Crawford, had some very interesting things to say. Boxing reporter Sean Zettel conducted an interview with a fighter from the UK who is a middleweight, and he goes by the name of Aaron McKenna. He has a brother who recently lost, but his brother was undefeated. He's undefeated, and he comes from a boxing family. He has a third brother that used to box, but doesn't really box anymore. And I'm going to go over his direct quotes and what he had to say, and then I'm going to destroy y'all. He says, and I quote, "Canelo Alvarez is the strongest fighter in the world at 168 pounds at that weight. If it was at a catchweight," referring to Crawford, Canelo, if it was at a catchweight, I think it would be a really good fight at 164 pounds, right? Terence Crawford definitely has the skills to give him a lot of trouble, and he has the timing and the range. It's just that if he can hold up to Canelo's strength, but I think it would be a very good fight. 168 pounds, yeah, but I think it would be even better if it were at a catchweight to make it more on the line. He's hard to catch. You have to be calculated. You can't fall short. You can't overreach. It has to be perfect sparring, says McKenna. So the boxing reporter Sean Zettel even asked again, he said, even at 168 pounds, it would be a good fight. And he said, yeah. And then he went back to the catchweight of 164 pounds. This is precisely the problem I have with that fight. And I find it so funny and ironic. I wouldn't change my job for anything in the world. I love this space because you have weak content creators and boxing fans. They try to subliminally diss. People leave comments getting mad at me because I don't want to see Terence Crawford versus Canelo like everybody else. Listen, if you love the fight, Merry Christmas. That's great on you. I don't care. It's like no more than what you ate for dinner or what you prefer to eat for dinner or your choice of females. What does that have to do with me? I think men got to start being men again, bro. 2025, let's get it. Because where in the world or in the rule book does it say that boxing ego gotta agree with what you agree with because you think something's a good fight? I said Joshua Tyson Fury. I'll watch it, but it's no longer the fight that it could have been. If you're from the UK, oh mate, you're slagging on mate, bang, right? And that's your favorite fight, that's on you. I'm telling you my opinion on my channel, and it's so funny because it rubs people the wrong way to the point where you have fans trying to cuss me out, leave comments. They're like, oh, Ego, how could you not do this for boxing? It's a great fight, trying to convince me. But Aaron McKenna, who is a middleweight, and he's like undefeated. I think he's 19-0. He's about 6'1". Him and his brother are extremely tall. They both have sparred with Terence Crawford. This is my problem. He's been in the ring, a 160-pound fighter, and his brother. So I'm sure they talked, they're close brothers from a boxing family. So I'm sure they've had conversations. He's doing an interview, and mind you, he's giving Terence Crawford all the praise. He's hard to catch. He's stealthy. You can't make no mistakes. You almost have to have a perfect sparring. this is what most people believe about Terence Crawford's ability in general, that he's a terrific fighter. I have never said anything else other than Terence Crawford can fight his butt off. However, Canelo Alvarez, the reason why I don't really care to see that fight is because they're in complete different weight classes and it doesn't make sense. I've never been big on rapid weight class jumping unless you've cleared out your division, which Crawford just moved to 154 and had one fight where he looked more human and it went to the scorecards instead of continuing what he did at welterweight, which is all knockouts. That knockout string automatically ended at 154. So if you're not knocking out an 11 fight Madrimov, then conventional wisdom would have me believe that you probably wouldn't knock out Canelo Alvarez 2 weight classes higher than 154, right? Because just like Madrimov has his own style, but Canelo got a beard and he has a difficult style. Plus he has dangerous combination punches and counter punches. Unless you think Canelo was totally washed, you know, and then if that's the case, then why do you think it's a great fight if Crawford would be moving up fighting a washed Canelo? So you got to look at it. Canelo's a prideful dude. I think he would have a great training camp for a name. Like, he's not going to want to lose to someone coming up in weight. But back to this video at hand. Again, you have a fight family who is sparred with Crawford, and he's proposing in a new interview that the fight take place at 164. And he's pretty much saying that's the sweet spot. And then he also is saying what I've been saying. So it's so funny when you have content creators that try to counter program me because they just prove they don't know ish about boxing. Pushing for this fight because you like it and then trying to explain it to the audience and, you know, contradict or go against what Boxing Ego is saying. I just find it ironic because the stuff I say later, you hear current fighters, former fighters, and trainers repeat. People who are pushing Terence Crawford versus Canelo and making like weird points. You don't really hear fighters mimicking and parroting what they're saying. It's just like, to me, that's just a novelty fight because you recognize both names and people are trying to make it like it's a good thing. Listen, if it happens, it happens. I'll get paid either way, whether it doesn't happen and the next fight happens or if that fight happens. So it's ironic and it's very funny that you have fans that'll say stupid stuff like, oh, Ego, you're scared. You're scared if Crawford, you hate Crawford and you're afraid if Crawford beats Canelo. Why on earth would I be afraid of that? What does that got to do with me? If Crawford knocked out Canelo, how does my life change? If anything, I'm gonna have a viral video if that happened, right? And it's so funny because you could look at the content and it shows that boxing fans, many of them by and large, are emotional babies. When I was the #1 channel pressuring Canelo to fight David Benavidez for years, they said I hated Canelo. I even came up with a term for the Cinnabons, the Chupapi Muñeños, the radical Canelo fans. And they said, oh, Boxing Ego, you hate Canelo. You only like black fighters. Now you guys are telling me I hate the black fighter and I want Canelo to win and all this goofy stuff. I just don't like the weight class jumping. And again, if you don't want to take my opinion, whatever. Listen to the fighter. Ask yourself this. Why is Aaron McKenna, a 160 pounder, middleweight, who has been in the ring, why does he keep suggesting that Terence Crawford and Canelo fight at a catchweight? For starters, Canelo already ex-nayed that idea and said, if I were to fight Crawford, I can't do 160 and I'm not coming down to a catchweight. So right then and there, that's a null and void conversation. There is no conversation because Terence Crawford has had issues selling. Canelo hasn't. So clearly Canelo's the A side. He would call the shots. Furthermore, Crawford initially offered the catchweight, which I just told you, and Canelo said no. So in more recent memory, you have Canelo Alvarez and Crawford changed what he said and says, you know what? I'll fight him at the full 168 pounds. So again, why would this sparring partner or the fans be still suggesting a catchweight if Canelo's the A side? He already said he's not going under 168 for nobody. He even changed it and said with Errol, he's not going down for nobody. He can't make the weight. And he's the A side over these dudes. So again, why are we talking about a catchweight if the fight is going to happen? It doesn't make sense. Plus, like I said, Crawford changed his words, and I could pull it up and show you if you don't believe me. And he said he would fight Canelo at the full 168. Initially, he did say a catchweight, but then he corrected that. And his more recent stuff, he said they would take the fight at the full 168. So the fact that this sparring partner who's been in the ring and he's only 100, he's a big, lanky 160 pounder, because like I said, he's about 6'1", and he's been in there and he's giving props. He's not hating on Crawford. He's saying he's hard to catch. He's very calculated, very technical. You can't make mistakes. You can't overreach, right? But he's saying that the fight needs to take place at a catchweight. I mean, read between the lines. What does that mean? Why, if you are a 160 pound dude? So for me, the way I would interpret that, if he's suggesting that, and he's also saying it's just that if he could hold up to Canelo's strength. I mean, if people are saying that, then that's not a good sign. If he can move to 168 and hold up to Canelo's strength, that's not a good sign. And that also means to me that although Crawford's a great fighter, that his power would be kind of minimized by rapidly moving up to 168. Again, he didn't knock out or knock down Madrimov, who only had 11 fights at 154. So you mean to tell me he's going to jump up 2 weight classes in one fell swoop and knock out or knock down Canelo Alvarez, who's never been knocked down or knocked out in his career? Say what you want about the man. And again, if you did believe that, then why is his own sparring partner, who's not dissing Crawford, and I'm sure he would love to continue that relationship and keep sparring with Crawford to help him ready for fights, he didn't say nothing negative. But again, you would have to ask, why is a 160 pounder saying they should fight at a catchweight at best, more so than the 168? That's a telltale sign for me that that's not Crawford's division. Also, another telltale sign that I brought up, when David Morrell and David Benavidez were at 168, if you mention Crawford fighting either one of those guys at 168, they say you're a Terence Crawford hater. Floyd Mayweather even said Crawford should fight David Benavidez if he wants to get to Canelo, right? You said that Boxing Ego and Floyd were haters for suggesting that. If you're good to move up to 68 to fight Canelo, the redhead, then why can't you fight other top guys that were at the division like Benavidez and Morrell? Because you want to cherry pick who you think you match up the best with, who's also the smallest in the weight class, you know, and you think that your chances are better. Plus, win, lose, or draw, you get a mega jackpot at the end of it. So this fight is not fooling anybody. And it's funny because I say the stuff, then you have people who act like they don't understand. You have content creators trying to subliminally respond and, you know, pitch it as a good fight. But the stuff I'm saying, you're hearing from professional fighters. 164 catchweight is not even a discussion because, and I can prove it, Canelo said he's not dropping down for Crawford. Crawford said he now is willing to move to the full 168 with no rehydration clause. So how stupid would Canelo Alvarez be if Crawford has interviews at this point saying he would move to 168 and fight Canelo at 168 with no rehydration clause? What type of fool, and he's 37, what type of fool would Canelo be as the A side to say, hey, let me accommodate Terence Bud Crawford who's never sold a fraction of what I've sold. He's not the A side. Plus, he told the world through interviews that he would fight at the full 168. Let me cut him some slack. Let me give him a break and meet him halfway, or make his travel up to the 160s more accommodating. You guys are pure idiots if you think that is something that would happen. This is not first class. This is not business class. This is not even a flight where the stewardess and the flight attendants are there to serve you and offer you peanuts and snacks and ginger ale. They're not there to accommodate you in the world of boxing. If you're the A side, like if I was the A side, I'd be like, I'm the A side, I'm Floyd Money Mayweather, I'm Canelo, kiss my ass. You want to fight me, fight with these terms. If not, kick rocks. Period. It's not up. That's the way the boxing game has always went. You got to wear this size gloves. We're fighting in Vegas. We're fighting in this size ring. Period. I'm the A side. I'm the cash cow. You like it, sign the contract. End of. So again, the whole idea of a catchweight this far into the conversation doesn't really give me hope for this fight, because that shouldn't even be a talking point because of what I just told you. Canelo said no already. He already said in an interview on a Mexican TV station, he says, if I fight Crawford, they're going to just say he was too small. So he didn't even really sound like he really wanted the fight. Him and Turkey don't seem like they have an amazing relationship. So with these things being factored in, you got people who are trying to pitch this as a good fight, but then a guy who sparred, and that's why I love my job, because I get to keep gloating. People are like, oh, Ego, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was, a god, right? People keep saying like, oh, Ego, you're wrong, and it's a great fight. But the guy that shared the ring with Crawford says it's a great fight, mostly at a catchweight, because who knows if he can hold up. So I don't know what he's seen in sparring, but there has to be a reason for him to keep throwing that caveat in there and saying that this would be a great fight, you know, kind of make it a fair fight by having it at a catchweight. Boxing is not about like I said, accommodating your opponent. That is just stupid. Why would Canelo, as the A side, with everything to lose, brand to lose, you know, fans to lose, if he got beat and knocked out or whatever by a smaller person, that would be embarrassing. So before round one, the bell even sounds, why would Canelo automatically concede anything to a guy like Crawford? And from the business side, they're not equals. Crawford is a great fighter. Crawford is a pound for pound fighter, and Crawford is talented and skilled. But I'm talking about on the business side, he doesn't have the metrics. His biggest fight was with Errol Spence Jr. They didn't even crack over 1 million. Canelo came closer to cracking 1 mil with Caleb Plant for Undisputed. When Crawford and Errol fought for Undisputed, it didn't even do as good as the Canelo-Caleb Plant fight. And I know a lot of boxers personally. They watch my stories on IG. Some of them I have pretty weekly conversations with in the DMs and things like that. Boxers will tell you that in the game of boxing, it is not your job to give people an alley-oop when you're about to fight them. I mean, who would do that? Like, if you're a slick boxer and the other guy's a puncher, why would you volunteer to let him wear smaller gloves with Mexican horsehair and no padding, knowing that you have no power and he has a lot of power? I mean, you're just stupid at that point, because there is a bit of gamesmanship that is involved in boxing. So anybody suggesting in 2025 that Crawford and Canelo needs to happen at a catchweight is unrealistic, because we're already past that, to the point where Crawford's side said they would fight at 168. There's no turning back now. You said no rehydration clause. You'll do the full thing. And again, it just shows me that it's really a fight. If Canelo already said no to the catchweight, and if that did come up, and I'm not saying Crawford will renege and take it back and then say, hey, let's do it at a catchweight. We're just talking about one of his sparring partners, what he said. So that's why we're having this conversation in this unpacked video. But let's just say Crawford's side try to negotiate that in, then I don't see this fight happening because Canelo already gave you his answer. But for the fans who said Box the Ego is wrong and this is a great fight, to me, this proves that this is not the fight people think. If a guy who's at 160, not even 68, is pitching for Crawford to fight at a catchweight, it doesn't make sense to me. That's just more reason. It just fuels everything that I've been saying. Weight classes exist for a reason. Moving up is a gradual process. Again, you could try to flip it on me and say, oh, it's because you hate Crawford. You know, people are hoping and fingers crossed that he doesn't get the Canelo fight because he's going to beat him. Somehow boxing ego is scared. Again, these things are deflections and they sound pretty dumb. Why would I, a YouTuber, I'm not the pro fighter. Why would I be scared for any fight that doesn't even involve me? Like in terms of Crawford, he's the one that has to show up and, you know, keep his legacy intact if he gets the Canelo fight. Canelo's going to have to fight the small. That don't really have nothing to do with me. Regardless of who Canelo chooses, I'll probably be making videos about it and I'll get paid. So hopefully this furthered the conversation and continues to show you that I'm the best in the business and it's not even close. I think the main moral here in this fable is Crawford's own sparring partner is pitching a catchweight. So to me, that says a whole lot without getting in detail, because I'm not expecting Aaron McKenna, an undefeated fighter who probably appreciates anything that Crawford has done. And, you know, just, I'm sure Crawford, he's a nice guy and he works with the other fighters. He probably gave him pointers and stuff. So he's not going to be cut and dry, maybe like me, because he probably wants to keep that relationship strong. And, you know, he doesn't have animosity, but I think it's very telling that he's saying that this fight should happen at a catchweight. And I think that spells bad news for this fight being, some people are saying it would sell great. I don't think that it sells much greater than, you know, the average Canelo fight, like a Berlanga, Mugia, Caleb Plant. I don't think it does Triple G numbers. Could be wrong if the fight happens. I don't know. It also depends on what network, if it ends up on dazn, if it ends up on PBC. So at this point, we don't even know if the fight will happen, and there's a lot of questions. But this just proves, and this is why I had to make this follow-up video, it proves everything I'm saying. Crawford's 37, talented fighter. He's getting praise from his sparring partner, but then his sparring partner keeps throwing in this catchweight, which is already a non-issue from Canelo's side. So if that does come up, then that's definitely going to be an issue. And catchweights do exist in boxing. Sometimes catchweights are needed, like Canelo and Floyd Mayweather. But the difference is Floyd had 2 fights at 54 before, Oscar De La Hoya and Miguel Cotto. He was fighting Canelo. Canelo actually said he would fight him at 150. Look it up. Floyd took that and said, okay, and then made him fight at a catchweight of 152 as the A side. But that's also a big difference because Floyd Mayweather is much smaller. Canelo outweighed him by about 15 pounds or so on the night of the fight. We know Floyd's not that big. He's a throwback fighter and he doesn't balloon up like Devin Haney and a lot of these new guys like that balloon up overnight. So Floyd's in a different category. Crawford is actually taller than Canelo. And I think he used to be like skinnier and lankier looking, but over the last couple years, I think he's put on some size, probably due to age. Your metabolism slows. He's a gym rat. So he's able to keep weight on him. Whereas when he was younger, I think the weight how hard he was working out and stuff, I think the weight just wouldn't stick to him. And now as he's, filled out as a man, he's 37 now, pushing 40, him working out, now he's able to retain some of that size. So realistically, in his off season, at least taller in reach, he's probably taller. He is taller than Canelo, and the reach is probably taller. Plus, again, we've seen Canelo fight a guy who had been undisputed at 54 in Jermell Charlo, and Jermell Charlo couldn't do anything with Canelo. And I get it. Some people would argue, but Crawford is not Charlo. And I agree. Crawford is not Charlo. He has his own style, he's ambidextrous, that. But at the same time, some people would say Charlo has a better chin. At the same time, Charlo had multiple fights at 154. So they do have different styles. We both and all can agree to that. But there's also some things in favor of Charlo, like being undisputed at 54, having several fights at 54, and he couldn't put a dent in Canelo. So I really don't know. And what this sparring partner is saying, who is a skinny, tall 160 pounder, the fact that he's suggesting a catchweight, to me, that's again speaking volumes. That means that, to me, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but my interpretation of it is that he's been in there with Crawford. He probably thinks that Crawford can't really hurt Canelo. Listen to what he's saying, and I read the quotes. Rewind this video and break that down and tell me if you interpreted it differently. Canelo is the strongest fighter in the world at 168 at that weight. I mean, he just told you that he believes Canelo's the strongest person at this weight class. Then he says, if it was at a catchweight, I think it would be a really good fight. People always tell on themselves. That's why I'm so into linguistics and the words and what people use and what people say, because it's very telling. That's the opening quote. Canelo's the strongest guy at 168, basically. And if it was at a catchweight, I think it would be a really good fight. This is what he's saying, right? And again, I've seen this with fighters that have relationships. They're not going to violate unless it's all bad with the fighter and they have beef with the fighter and they don't plan on like working together and stuff. So they're not going to just be like cutthroat. A lot of people, they want to hedge their bet a little bit. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Aaron McKenna is probably a cool guy. I believe I said he's from the UK. He's actually Irish. So I want to clarify that. But ultimately, I think McKenna's just keeping it cool with what he's saying. So that's why I'm saying you kind of have to interpret and read between the lines a bit with what he's saying in terms of, the fact that he just threw out the catchweight is telling me what I need to know. And like, for example, if Crawford was hitting like Better Biev when they sparred and he had power that Aaron McKenna thought would translate to Better Biev style power at 175, why would he suggest a catchweight? That's my question to you. Let's say, because you're going to have fans leave comments, say, oh, you're hating and all that goofy stuff. You're going to have content creators try to subliminally respond and all this type of thing. So that's the question I'm posing to you. After sparring, let's say Terence Crawford's power was hitting like Better Biev at 175. Why would he be offering and saying it's a better fight basically at a catchweight if he felt that Crawford hits like Better Biev? Make that make sense. Why wouldn't he if he thought that Crawford's power was what really stood out and he got knocked out or something in sparring, then why wouldn't he say like, hey, Crawford need to fight him at 168? Even if they fought at 175, I'm picking Terence Crawford. Wouldn't you be boastful? Wouldn't you be confident if you thought Crawford's power would translate well in this new division? You guys are telling on yourselves and then acting like I'm crazy. This is why the Bud Buddies and fans don't want to see when Floyd Mayweather said Crawford should fight David Benavidez at 68, or when Boxer Ego said it, or when Boxer Ego said, what about David Morrell when they were at 168? beat David Morrell, beat Benavidez, and then get Canelo. Because now you've proven something. You've proven that you can rock and hurt and beat and everything translates well. Crawford wants a warp whistle straight to Canelo, straight to the jackpot without having to earn it in the higher weight classes. And so do his fans. They want to just be like, oh, Crawford's a great fighter. He's a pound for pound fighter. He won some ESPYs. He's 2X undisputed. So let him just do whatever he wants as the B-side, move up through any weight class he wants and get the pick of the litter against the A-side. And yeah, let's even throw in the catchweight. Bro, what world do you guys live in? None of that's going to happen. If this fight happens, I doubt it will be at a catchweight. I highly doubt that because Canelo already told you. And Canelo is the worst person that the fans could even suggest this with. From what I know about Canelo, I don't know the guy personally, but like even Errol Spence, like with Errol Spence, he was so hungry to prove and fight for undisputed that he gave into some of Crawford's demands, even if his team thought they were silly. Errol Spence documented this. He told you this. His team wanted him to walk away because it was getting in negotiations to a point where Crawford wanted too much, and his team was like, man, fight somebody else because he's trying to get coin flips and all this other stuff. So at least in the Errol Spence situation, you have Errol who, because of who he is, he's not like a diva. So there was some give. Errol Spence was willing to make some concessions. He told you. He said, I believe he said he had to give millions from his purse to Crawford just to get this fight over the line, right? Fast forward to Canelo Alvarez. Payday. You want payday? I know that. We're talking about a whole different animal. Canelo ain't gave nobody Canelo, that's not even his personality. Like, if Golovkin says, I want to fight in Kazakhstan, he ain't gonna fight him in Kazakhstan. Hey, no, guys, hey, Max, guys, is nothing, punches, guys, tick, nothing. You're not gonna fight him in Kazakhstan, right? I believe there was probably two guys he was the B-side against, and that was Miguel Cotto and Floyd Mayweather. Outside of that, he was pretty much the A-side, and he said, my way or the highway, basically. I've earned it. I'm the man. I got the fans. You want to fight Billy Joe Saunders? You can come get it on my terms. Caleb Smith, come get it on my terms. Let me punch your arms out. Sergey Kovalev, I know you just fought Anthony Yard like 2 weeks ago, but you got to fight me right then on this date. Otherwise, we not fighting. Fight me in November or you don't get the fight. Canelo's always been a dictator in that regard. So a person that financially, like Crawford, hasn't had these crazy pay-per-view numbers and stuff, Canelo definitely is not going to be fooled and look at Crawford as an equal in that regard and give him anything. Like, why would you give a person leverage to beat you or try to beat you? Because that's what boxing is. It is potentially, in its rawest form, is potentially my life versus your life. A life for a life. You know what I mean? Like, that's what, I hate to say it, but that's at the grand scheme of things, that's what you're gambling. You're shooting dice, playing Russian roulette, but what's in the revolver is your life. That's what you gambling each time you box. That's how dangerous it is. So again, if you've earned your spot, you earned your keep, earned your stripes like a Canelo, you know you're a marked A-side, considerable A-side over a 37-year-old Crawford. Why would you give him any extra tools to beat you? It doesn't even make sense what you guys are saying. That's like, you might as well have Eddie Reynoso giving pointers to Terence Crawford, like, oh, go to Canelo's body, he got a rib injury. Like, that's not gonna happen. Just like the catchweight has already been decided that that's not gonna happen. So this sparring partner told me what I need to know, and it just proves everything I said about this fight. If you have to stretch it and do all this extra stuff and make a catchweight and try to negotiate things that have already been put out there and backtrack from statements that Crawford's already made, then the fight doesn't need to happen. If the fight does happen, mark my words, it would have to be under Canelo's terms. He would have full dictatorship. And to me, I think that stipulates 168. When have you known Canelo to give people any type of favors? Like, he could have fought Amir Khan at 154. So Amir Khan could have went from 47 to 54. He ain't do that. He made Khan come up the extra 1 pound so he didn't have to lose an extra 1 pound, and he fought him at Canelo weight. And he cooked Amir Khan. I actually talked to Amir Khan at that time, and I have the video. Don't make me dig into the archives. Amir Khan says his side wanted to get a rehydration clause because they knew they were coming up from welterweight to Canelo weight at 155. And he said Golden Boy, Canelo's then promoter, told him, hey, we're not doing no rehydration clause. 155, this is your purse, take it or leave it. You know, when you're at a Canelo level, you send take it or leave it. So at best, Crawford will get a take it or leave it. I don't even know if the fight will happen. I'm not optimistic, nor do I even like the fight like that. Some people are like, oh, ego, why you ain't like the fight? Man, shut up. I don't have to like what you like. You know, if your favorite food is anchovies, that's on you. That don't got nothing to do with me. I don't really like the fight. I've more than explained in detail. Like I said, there's a lot of low quality content creators rushing out quick videos, clickbaiting, not talking about anything. But here's a quick 4-minute video. I could do that all day. I'm giving you details. When I don't like something, I'll take the time for my audience to explain it. And I've done that in this video and every subsequent video I've made about this Canelo Crawford business. It's my opinion, it's my thoughts. You can try to flip it, spin it, twist it. Oh, you hate Crawford, you hate Canelo, whatever. I'm the Grinch that stole boxing. I hate everybody. Fine. It's not going to change my opinion. I don't care what y'all say. So that's, again, why I don't fancy this fight. And the sparring partner, it's not that I need it because I don't need validation, but to me, it's icing on the cake. It's just insult to injury for the people who are saying the opposite. He talking about a catchweight. To me, that lacks confidence. That's the best way to put it. It lacks confidence if you want to see the fight. If you sparred the man and you're not confident that he can move to the 168 and make a great fight, because that's not what you initially said. You initially said to Sean Zattel that Canelo's the strongest fighter in the world at the weight of 168. So if it were at a catchweight, but again, I don't deal with these plausibilities when Canelo already told you what's up and he ain't moving down to no catchweight, because why would he? If I'm Canelo, I'll be like, kick rocks. Why would I fight you? I don't even want to fight you. You and Turkey, the one that keep calling me out. So Canelo's already said that. Why would I listen to the bequest of Turkey and Terence Crawford or whoever and come fight you at a weight that you think cut you some slack? Boxing is not a sport about let me cut you some slack. It's like football. Football is also a very strategic sport. If you're in the lead by 2 touchdowns, you don't want the Packers, the opposing team, to try to rally and come back with onside kicks and some Hail Marys. You hog the ball. It's play clock management. You take knees, huddle, burn the clock, make them burn out all their timeouts, waste all their timeouts, etc. And then it goes down the 2-minute warning. Then you do a little run play to keep the ball running and the clock running, and you burn up the clock. That's what you do. Imagine if any sports team or any boxing team did what some of you guys are saying, which is like, yeah, Canelo, if he's a man, he should fight him at a catchweight in this equation. That's like telling the 49ers that they should be a man and not make the other team waste timeouts, not take a knee and just play 4 down territory when they're up by 2 touchdowns. Again, It's a strategy. Doesn't make sense to give your opponent any breaks or a way back into the game. So I don't expect Canelo to do that. I told you I was the best in the business. We unpacked.